Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, number 49, or Legacy numbering 943, shows both the good and bad sides of existing in a larger universe. The good side is that you get to team up with badass characters and have badass stories. The cons? Sometimes you're obligated to tie into events or stories that maybe the audience doesn't care as much about. And that is the case with this issue. This issue is the one-off tie-in to the Blood Hunt event that is currently going on in the larger Marvel Universe. And it's a fine story. I'll admit it's not necessarily a bad issue, but it's definitely a step off of the narrative track that we've been going with Spider-Man for the last several months. And it's a book that some people will honestly turn away from because they're not reading the larger Blood Hunt event. So we have to come at this from two different perspectives. The larger narrative perspective, where Spider-Man has kind of an obligation to participate in the event, but also the more personal angle of just wanting to see the story of our favorite characters progress, as opposed to Spider-Man filling in for this larger narrative. Now, I'll admit it's not a bad issue. It's a perfectly good issue, but it's maybe not something that I would really want right now. Right now, I'm not really interested in vampires or Blood Hunt or anything like that. I'm interested in what's going on with the Sinister Six, what's going on with the Goblin, what's going on with Peter and Mary Jane. I'm interested in all that stuff. So having Spider-Man help some guy from the first issue of this volume, who I had completely forgotten about until I read this issue, having him in a one-off story fighting vampires maybe isn't my cup of tea. Now, the good parts of this story, it does show Spider-Man's good side. He refuses to kill. When people want him to start killing vampires, he holds back. That's not what he does. He wants to save everybody. He wants to save as many people as we can. And that's great. That's classic Spider-Man. The artwork, led by John Romita Jr. and his team, absolutely fantastic to look at. No notes there whatsoever. But I will say that this issue is a step off the beaten path that we've been on. So maybe it's not entirely for me. I do think that it can be a good read, and it does provide some good character moments for Spider-Man, but it's not necessarily something that I would say is worth the $4.99 price tag that they've been dealing out so much over the past few years. So I'm not going to give this issue a negative review. It's a good issue, but it's not what I would want. It's not my favorite issue. So I'll give it a thumb sideways in terms of up, sideways, or down. I'll give it a sideways. It's a good story, but it's not what I'm looking for right now. But if you do have time, I would maybe suggest 3 months from now, when this story is on Marvel Unlimited, and if you're subscribed to that, maybe check it out. It could be a fun issue for you to read. But right now, I don't think $4.99 is worth it for this book. Of course, the character of Spider-Man always has his great moments, and they continue in this issue. John Romita Jr. always has great artwork. That continues in this issue. But the larger narrative of Amazing Spider-Man does not continue in this issue. And ultimately, it's up to the reader to decide, do they want to invest in a one-off story, or do they want to wait for the next issue that's going to really push the narrative forward?